A grand jury in Georgia has subpoenaed 7 allies of former President Trump in the investigation into his efforts to overturn that state's 2020 election result. South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Mr. Trump's former personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, have been among those subpoenaed. Graham said today he is planning on fighting the grand jury's order. Tia Mitchell joins me now. Tia is the Washington correspondent for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Tia, what do we know about these subpoenas and what their effect might actually be?
Well, we know that these subpoenas, the most recent ones, target members of former President Trump's inner circle. We're talking about, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, who was a very prominent attorney with Stop the Steal efforts, Senator Lindsey Graham, who we know is, one of Trump's biggest allies within Congress. And what it means is that the grand jury is really looking at Trump's inner circle, the top level of government at the time. Of course, we don't know is exactly who is under investigation. There's been a lot of speculation about whether subpoenas mean, for example, that Rudy Giuliani may not necessarily be the target of the investigation. We don't know that. And we also don't know if President Trump is a target of the investigation. But it's clear that the investigation is looking at, again, President Trump and those at the highest level of government, those in the Oval Office with him during the efforts to overturn the general election leading up to January 6th.
And this really is an investigation into whether state law was violated in any of those efforts. It's being led by the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. We should note she is a Democrat. One big question looming out there, will she subpoena former President Trump?
Yeah, and again, that's one of those things we don't know. We probably won't know until she actually does it or right before. And again, there's so much speculation about what these subpoenas mean. And if Trump is the target of the investigation, which again, we don't know, would the grand jury subpoena him or would they stop and just subpoena people around him? There's so much we don't know. There's a lot of speculation that because of the way the state laws are written, that because one of the charges that are possible in this case is not just actively engaging in election fraud, but a conspiracy charge that many people believe could end up in former President Trump facing charges. And you would think that if they do want to charge President Trump, they might attempt to hear from him in some matter, whether it's via subpoena or otherwise compelling him to testify or getting him to sit down. But we just don't yet know what that might mean, when it could happen, or when those decisions will be made.
Tia, about the subpoena for Senator Graham, his attorneys responded with a statement claiming this was, quote, all politics, unquote. Is there a reason that we've been able to discern as to why the district attorney wants to talk to Senator Graham?
Well, in the documents where the subpoena was drafted, it mentions a couple of calls that the senator placed after the 2020 general election. He called Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, asked Raffensperger to take another look at absentee ballots that allies of President Trump felt had either been inaccurately counted or ballots that should have been thrown out were instead counted and helped Joe Biden carry Georgia. Now, we know a lot of those allegations that Senator Graham and others were peddling were based on false or just false, misleading information, untruths about the election and how the election was carried out and how ballots were counted. But he was among the people trying to pressure Secretary of State Raffensperger to take another look. And those calls he placed are the main reason why he has now been subpoenaed.
And Tia, you've been very careful to talk about things being speculated but not yet known. As you know, this investigation has been going on for quite some time. It's been simmering. So for the audience who wants to know what these subpoenas represent, not exactly what they're about or where they're taking this, it seems to an outside observer like myself, the very fact these subpoenas have been granted and backed up suggests this is a step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the grand jury in DA Willis, I would say, are not taking this lightly. They know that the eyes of the nation are on this investigation. She's trying to do everything by the book because she's made it clear that she's serious about holding people accountable if the grand jury determines that laws were broken after the 2020 general election. We know about the intense pressure on elected officials in Georgia, and we should note that those elected officials were Republicans just like President Trump, who resisted that pressure and who said, claims that the election were stolen, that's false. That did not happen. Claims about ballots not being counted correctly or absentee ballots being mishandled, those things are false. And President Trump and his allies persisted anyway. And DA Willis, who's in Fulton County, which is the most populous county in Georgia, it's the home of Atlanta. It's where a lot of the allegations were targeted. She says if she finds that there was criminal liability, she will bring charges.
Tia Mitchell with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We thank you.